Hello and welcome to For Fantasy's Sake, the Quad City's first and only fantasy football show. I am Doug Green, the only man left standing tonight. Everybody else is got other priorities, so you are stuck with me this evening. So please make sure that you are dropping your comments into the comment stream down below. We are brought to you, of course, as always on Wednesday nights by The Big Cheese. I want to send a big thank you to those folks for kindly sponsoring our Wednesday night short yardage segment. So let's talk about a couple of different things that we've got going on in the NFL. So one of the things I just saw before I came on live was ESPN was asking if Matt Ryan was going to be a top 10 quarterback this week. So they're playing Carolina, and Matthew Berry was making the case that Carolina's defense was a little underrated, and Field Yates was making the case that Ryan's been, has the plenty of the firepower and the pedigree to basically make it all go. I kind of am on the Field Yates' side here a little bit. I feel like that while the Carolina defense is good at the run stopping, their coverage guys isn't anybody that's really going to scare you. So I feel like with the kind of the firepower that Atlanta has with Ridley and with Julio and Gage, I really feel like those guys will challenge Carolina's secondary, and I feel really like that this is a good week for Matt Ryan to get out there and really kind of put up some numbers this week. Now, he's probably already rostered in your league. You're probably not going to be able to trade for him without giving up something decent for him. But he might be a buy low kind of guy. Might be worth your time to make a phone call or a text message and just to see kind of what it's worth. But he's somebody to roll the dice on this week. I do think that he's worth a start, and I do kind of like his odds this week. Just going quickly through the games this week as we look at that. That's actually the Thursday night game tomorrow night. So I guess if you were going to roll your dice with Matt Ryan, you would have to do that right now. Game of the week, clearly Sunday afternoon, is going to be that Pittsburgh-Baltimore game. 6-0 Steelers versus 5-1 Baltimore. Baltimore's only loss is to Kansas City. So in that week one Thursday night game, I really like the way that Baltimore matches up with Pittsburgh. I would like to see Baltimore kind of knock them off. Could be a big week for Lamar Jackson. Probably going to have to be a big week for Lamar Jackson. That Pittsburgh defense has been playing really, really well. The offense, Ben really has been kind of going, has a multitude of weapons, so much so that people are kind of that Juju Smith-Schuster is almost an afterthought at this point. So I don't know if this is the week that he kind of comes alive or not, but I do think that if Baltimore is going to knock off Pittsburgh, that you're going to need a big week out of Lamar Jackson and maybe even a big week out of Marquise Brown just to get that, because they're going to have to get some explosive plays in order to do that. Grounding and pounding is not going to work this week. Pittsburgh's just too powerful on offense. So Baltimore's going to need to get a couple of big rips in terms of scoring out there, whether that be Jackson getting loose or somebody in the wide receiver core getting behind the defense and him finding them. It's going to be on Lamar Jackson's shoulders this week if they're going to want to pull off a win. Stepping back to the Sunday night game, I know nobody wants to talk about that Bears game, but it was not pretty. Everybody's kind of throwing Nagy and the offensive line under the bus, which absolutely Nagy called a terrible game, and the offensive line does not look good. They're missing a couple of key pieces, not making excuses, but truth of the matter is that they are missing a couple of guys off that line. But yeah, they're just going to have to just get better. I mean, yeah, they're 5-2. You're in a tough stretch. They've got New Orleans this week and then Tennessee next week. and then Allen Robinson came up with a concussion, so who knows if he's actually going to play this week. So that's going to be, it's a tough matchup. Even if New Orleans doesn't have Michael Thomas, which it's looking like they may not have him this week again, that's still a tough matchup. Kamara will be the best player on the field, best offensive player on the field, or a best player not named Khalil Mack on the field. So really then it comes down to, can Chicago's offense, without Allen Robinson, which is what you've got to kind of look at right now, do they have enough to generate enough points against a Drew Brees-led Saints team, even without Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders? And to be quite honest, that's probably fair. I would say you're going to give the edge to Brees gets the edge of the quarterback position. Kamara gets the edge at the running back position. The wide receivers are probably a push with everybody being out. And then the tight ends, I would probably give the slight edge to Graham and Komet there. So really it's going to come down to, I'd say Brees is, I don't just say, I mean, that's pretty much a fact that Brees is probably head and shoulders above Foles, even at his advanced age. So he's going to be somebody. So I think that's really where that's going to come down to. He's going to be the guy who's going to, in the key moments, it's going to be Brees is going to be the one who's going to find a way to make that play. We've seen Foles do it on occasion, but Nick is one of those guys. He runs hot and cold. So you really do kind of have to, he's either going to be great or he's going to be terrible. And you're going to have to just kind of ride with that. And you've got to hope that good Nick shows up that week. All right, let's see. What else do y'all want to talk about? Nobody commented yet. Please make sure that you throw those in there and throw me a bone, since I am riding solo tonight, or at least until some of the other guys show up. Chris Godwin this week broke his finger last week in the fourth quarter there, so he will be out this week. They are going to replace him with Antonio Brown. I think they said Antonio Brown will be eligible to go next week. So this is week 8. Antonio Brown is ready to go. Will be ready to go in week 9. Bruce Arians said he looked good in the first practice today, which shocking. I mean, the problem with Antonio Brown isn't the talent. The problem is between the ears and whether he can, frankly, behave himself well enough to play, to stay on a team and actually hang around and be a useful part of that. Now, he's going to be at best, when Godwin comes back, he's going to be at best the wide receiver 3, I would think. Puts him at least third in the pecking order. And, of course, Brady still has eyes for Gronkowski. So he might even be the 4th passing option there. But at the same time, he's got plenty of talent. I don't know. That's a wait and see for me. I think we said on the show Sunday, if you're in a dynasty league, you're probably passing on him, and if you're in a redraft league, you're rolling the dice on him for the short-term kind of pop there. But that's totally up to you how you want to play those types of things. I tend to be a little bit more conservative about that kind of stuff. I will generally give that a week or two, even if I miss out on a guy. I'd much rather miss out on a guy who goes off because the odds are generally more in my favor that the guy's not going to blow up to the level that people think that he is. If he's going to be a boom bust guy, it's going to be more bust than boom a greater percentage of the time, in my opinion, in my experience. Okay, let's see what else is out there for us to talk about tonight. See what are some other good topics. I joined a new league. I don't know I'm sure you guys don't want to hear about that though. Let's see. In terms of other news, the Cowboys are releasing Dontari Poe and Worley after trying to trade them. No shock there. Once teams find out that they can get them for free, you will rarely get anybody make a call about that. Dontari Poe is somebody I wouldn't mind seeing the Bears pick up, to be quite honest. They are missing Eddie Goldman. Eddie Goldman sat out 2020 for COVID reasons, which is totally cool. And Poe is a very kind of similar player. If you sign him for kind of a rest of the year deal to be that space eater that Eddie Goldman was in the middle of the field, I think that would help out that defense quite a bit. Get some of those short yardage plays and get them off the board. I wish there was somebody here tonight to ping off of, is Baker Mayfield good or not? Because the jury's still kind of out on him, to be quite honest. Even not necessarily even game to game, might even be quarter to quarter. In case you didn't see it on Sunday, he was 0 for his first 5 with a pick in the first quarter and then lit it up. I think he was something like 22 of 23 for the rest of the game, or 23 of 26, something ridiculous. Just completely went bonkers. Now Cleveland's 5-2 and looking pretty comfortable there. Now that AFC North is a pretty competitive division, but I don't know. Baker, he's one of those guys. I probably wouldn't trust him in a big spot. I had him in a couple of places, and I've cut him in a couple of places just because I've been, a lot like Foles. There's a lot of good and a lot of bad, and it depends on whether the good is going to be the one who, which guy shows up that week. And I tend to be a little bit more risk adverse when it comes to those kind of guys, and I'm willing to live with that. But I would love to hear, and we'll ask that on Sunday to the guys and see what their opinions on Baker are, and see if that's somebody that might be worth a trade target. Speaking of trades, this week is NFL trade deadline week. I believe it is Tuesday. I believe it is Super Tuesday on voting day. So make sure. So there still might be some names out there to get moved. We'll see. Bengals traded today Carlos Dunlap to Seattle because the Seahawks were looking for a little bit more pass rush up front. They lost Jadeveon Clowney last year. They signed Clowney and then let him walk. He's now down in Tennessee. And getting Dunlap. Obviously, Dunlap doesn't have quite the pedigree that Clowney does in terms of raw athleticism, but he is still a solid player, and he has not been happy in Cincinnati for a while. So we'll see how all of that is going to work out. On Sunday, I asked the guys, I said, Aaron Rodgers hadn't gone back-to-back without a touchdown in 70-plus starts. Clearly, he went out and went nuts. This week, he's got that hapless Minnesota defense. So it looks like this might be another big week for Rodgers and Devontae Adams there. That's at home in Lambeau. So that might be another place to start. Probably a good shot then to fire up Kirk Cousins. Not that he's going to light your world on fire, but they probably will be playing from behind. So you probably are going to want Captain Kirk. He's probably going to be throwing the ball. Supposedly Dalvin Cook will be back this week, but that may not make much of a difference just because Green Bay is going to be lighting up that scoreboard, and they're probably going to have to throw a lot just to even try and stay in the game. All right. So let's see what else is out there. Anything that's kind of tickling my fancy tonight? Any other thing interesting? There's not a lot of great games this week. Unfortunately, Kansas City Jets, that's going to be a blowout. Indy Detroit might be sort of interesting, I guess, in a perverse kind of way. Tennessee Cincy will be a blowout. Buffalo New England. Once upon a time, Buffalo New England might have actually been a competitive game. I do not know what is happening out there in Boston, but boy, New England just doesn't look the same without Brady. Even with Cam has not looked good here the last couple of weeks after coming back from his Corona vacation. Just not been looking good. Hopefully he can figure that out. I know a lot of people have a lot invested in him, but boy, that has been a rough go. Buffalo's been looking good. Obviously, their 2 losses have been to a couple of good teams, but at this point, I would say Buffalo's probably the favorite in that game, especially being at home. But it's going to be really weird to see New England at 2-5 going into this week. Chargers in Denver are one of the late games. That's not going to be anything fun to watch. in there. Seattle and San Francisco, once upon a time, might have been interesting. Seattle's really looking like world beaters out there now. Russ is probably the MVP at this point. At least he's got my vote. San Francisco's starting to turn things around now that they're getting folks back healthy. But boy, they have been beaten up by injuries this year. Jimmy G's been, didn't look good when he came back from his injury. That running game has just been, they're putting it together with duct tape and bubble gum at this point. And then Debo got hurt again. So really rough to see him go down. Brandon Ayuk's been a nice pickup for them. But boy, that has been a rough go. It seems like every time San Francisco takes one step forward, it takes two steps back. And then the other late afternoon game Sunday is obviously Saints Chicago. I'm going to have a lot of eyeballs on that. Like I said, that one's probably going to be close there. Sunday night game is going to. This is not pretty, folks. Dallas, Philly with a combined record of 4-9-1 for first place in the NFC East. That is not great. No Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's still in the concussion protocol. He took that lick from John Bostic last week. Can't even remember the guy who's supposed to pick up for him this week. I actually had to pick him up in my new league that I just jumped into. Ben DiNucci. If you have that, if you knew who that was coming into the season, you should be hosting the show and not me, because I had no idea who that guy was. But that is who will be at the Sticks Sunday night for Dallas. Obviously, Carson Wentz and the crew haven't looked good. Dallas only put up 3 points last week. There's infighting there, self-destructing. People are saying Mike McCarthy is, Mike McCarthy. So the whole thing's just not looking good. Jerry Jones is losing it on radio hosts. Basically, you can be interesting. You can have all this kind of drama if you're winning and playing well, in my opinion. But if you're bad and you got all this other chaos going on, that's not a good look. That is a great way for your team to self-destruct. And you're probably going to be – everything's going to quite melt down around you. I would be surprised just the way that it is if there's a serious kind of shakeup down there in Dallas. Obviously, we know that Jerry's not going anywhere. Maybe McCarthy's one and done. I don't know. Losing Dak really kind of hurt them, but it's been kind of ugly all over the place down there, even with him. Monday night game is going to be Tampa Bay at the Giants. I don't know how Giants keep getting all these primetime games because they are terrible. But the NFL loves to put Tom Brady in on primetime, so he's back up there again after a Thursday nighter here a couple of weeks ago. Tampa Bay's been looking pretty good, though. I expect Tampa Bay to kind of run away in that one, but we'll see how that goes. Again, no Godwin in that one, so that one's probably going to be the Mike Evans show. Maybe, and Ronald Jones has been playing really, really well, rolling through there. Let's jump back over here, see if we've got any questions in here. Hopefully, KC Jets is a blowout. Lev Bell revenge game. Yes. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Usually that is. I don't know how much Andy Reid will let Le'Veon Bell get on the field, but yeah, I could see him if they're going to give him 15 touches for him to really kind of want to really put it to the Jets. Jordan says Wilson is greater than Mahomes. You will get no fight this season from me. And since DJ's not on the broadcast, you'll get no fight from anybody here. And Bo says Ben Hu, of course, that would be the quarterback of the Steelers. Yeah, that guy. Not a fan of that guy. But he's playing, so we have to talk about him, unfortunately. All right, so let's see what else is out there to talk about. You guys want to talk about The Mandalorian? There are no rules to the show, and I'm the only one here, so I can talk about whatever I want. That does drop Friday. I'm very excited about that. Probably even more excited about than any of the football games this weekend, just to get that back. One of my favorite shows. if you see anything, my phone, my iPad all have Mandalorian backgrounds on it. So excited to see that. Again, I can see DJ rubbing his face from Rock Island here going, oh God, now he's went off the rails. Let's see, what else is there to chat about? Top 10 yak monsters in 20. Let's see what the NFL says about this. Kamara, Debo, Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool, good find for folks running around out there as well. Not somebody that I would have thought would have came in and kind of taken the bull by the horns the way that he has this year, but he's really looked good for Pittsburgh. When will Cousin Bo wants to know, when will Dalvin Cook be back? According to reports, he was back at practice today. He looks like he's going to play this week. But like I said earlier, they're playing Green Bay, which is firing on all cylinders in Lambeau. Dalvin might be back, but I wouldn't expect a big week out of him. I think they're going to be behind from the get-go, and they're going to have to be throwing it early and often. Probably a big week for Justin Jefferson, but I don't anticipate a big week for Dalvin, unfortunately, on that side of it. All right, let's see. Might as well plug the site while we're here. We do have a fantastic crew. They are been trying to get on here. Both Michael Sicoli and Brendan Sampson are both actually college students. And they have class on Wednesday nights. So we've been trying to get them on Wednesday nights. We're trying to hope to get them out of class early enough so that they come on the show with us. But we want to get them on because they have been doing a fantastic job. Both are really, really smart guys. Obviously, Linda Godfrey has been kind of our little internet superstar on there. She's been doing a great job with her streaming articles. We can't get along without Bonnie Robinson, who's been doing a great job with her weekly streamer articles and helping out with the editing stuff. And then, of course, there's, us three yahoos on Sundays. All right. Jordan asked, do you like Teddy in tomorrow's game? Teddy or Breeze versus Chicago as a streamer? I think I would take Teddy in that scenario. That Falcons defense has been pretty trash. And the Bears, will probably get to Breeze in some respect. I would imagine them, that back end's pretty solid. Eddie Jackson's been, he finally got his defensive touchdown last week. So that secondary is pretty solid. Mac will probably get him once or twice. I would probably go Teddy this week in that. Thoughts on JaMycal Hasty? I don't have a ton of thoughts on Hasty. Let me see what I can find on him real quick. If I can know how to use my computer. Yeah, like I said, he's that San Francisco run game is being put together kind of like by duct tape and chewing gum this week. So I would, he's probably somebody might be worth rolling the dice on. I probably wouldn't do him any more than a flex. But he's probably, now I'm thinking about it because they've got that Seattle defense too. Now Seattle's pass rush has really been what's been lacking. Again, I'm okay with you starting him, but I probably wouldn't do much more than a flex on him there. For the rest of the season, he's probably worth a waiver wire pickup, bench stash kind of thing. He's a bye-week plugger, as I call them. I probably wouldn't. He's not somebody that I'm investing in long term. So if you got him in a keeper league or something like that, I'm probably not pulling the trigger on him there. But for a short term, get you through the bye-week gauntlet, probably okay. Chris Steele says he's going to be joining me soon, and then of course he's fighting the internet issues, so we'll see. Hopefully the man of steel will show up here pretty soon, so I'm not just babbling on to myself, which is kind of funny because that's actually what I do for my job during the day. Is I actually teach people how to use internet software, so I spend the majority of my day actually talking to myself, waiting for people to ask me questions. So not unlike the rest of the day. Except I don't get paid for this. I should talk to DJ about that. All right, let's see. Let me take a quick drink and we'll see kind of what else is running around out there. Oh yes, Aaron Jones hasn't been looking like he's going to might look like he's going to play this week again, but again, that Rodgers and Adams in that passing game, powerful enough that I don't think that's a big deal. I'd still favor them quite a bit. All righty. All right. Invite. Copy the clipboard. All right, Mr. Steele. Let me find you. All righty, now we're cooking with Crisco. All right, so send that on to him. Hi, our new cat has showed up. She wants to see what this fuss is all about. Would you like to visit? Nope. Okay. So we just got her last week. So this is her first time in the basement. Do you see the Bears going 0-4 next 4? Kind of, yeah, to be quite honest. I think they might steal one of those, but boy, I would say that Vikings game is going to be the one that I think that they're going to be able to steal, to be quite honest. I know you don't want to hear that, Jordan, but that's the one I think that they can probably steal because Saints will be a tough game. I don't see them beating Titans. And then the other one is the Thanksgiving Day game against Green Bay. Yeah, I think if they're going to get one of those 4, it's going to be Minnesota. That would be the one that I would see them grabbing. Would I like to see them knock off Green Bay on Thanksgiving? Yeah, that would be sweet. But I don't know if that's realistic. Titans are too good. They're a machine. Unfortunately, as much as I would like to see them tank for Trevor, the problem is they started 5-2, so that means the worst they can finish is 5-11. And New York and Miami are clearly way in front of them in terms of suckitude. So that is going to be tough to tank for Trevor at that point. That's the problem with the start that the Bears got off on, knowing that they were probably not as good as what their record indicated, is they're playing too well to get a decent draft pick, and then they're not playing well enough to get into the playoffs or to make any noise if they would happen to just backdoor into the playoffs at 8-8 or something like that. So they're really kind of in that limbo state, and then you're really kind of stuck because then, especially if you want to do an overhaul, you've got a middle of the road pick. What do you do with your quarterback? And you're going to get rid of Nagy and Pace. And even if you want to blow the whole thing up, you don't really kind of have the tools in place to kind of go forward. Allen Robinson's his contract year. So if you wanted to blow it up, this is kind of the year, but you really wanted them to really kind of suck more than that in order to do so. Hey, look, it's Chris Steele, everybody.
Hey, I apologize. I had many technical times. I got a new computer, and the old computer wanted to get one last shot in, so I allowed it to shoot its shot, and it terrorized me all night while I tried to set up the new one. So I am coming to you from the old computer, and my producer even let me down, aka my phone, because I couldn't find it for several minutes. Let's go with minutes instead of hours.
All righty. Well, I've just been babbling here for the last half hour.
I think we demolished the Bears from what I heard, Doug. Is that what I heard?
Let's just say it wasn't pretty. I did not like what I saw Sunday night, and Jordan asked how I saw them going in the next 4, and I said 1-3, with the only win being against Vikings. But I think that's a fair assessment, don't you?
I think they're good enough to beat the bad teams. I think that's what you've seen from the Bears so far.
Yes.
This next stretch of games is going to be tough for them. I'm not quite sure I'm sold on New Orleans yet. They're kind of up and down. So at this point, they can score more than 20 points. And I think if you can score more than 20 points on the Bears, you beat the Bears. because over Matt Nagy's entire career here in Chicago, we haven't seen that team really blow up and score a bunch of points. There's the Tampa Bay game where everybody said Mitch has finally arrived. And then after that, there were none of those games. So I think it's really going to be an interesting look. What did you think of the whole Brian Greasy thing, talking about like essentially Foles feeling like they were calling plays that they didn't have time to block up or run? And he said something along the lines of, I got to get it out in a hurry. And I don't think we can, I don't think I can get that playoff in time. And it's a weird one.
Yeah. Foles backtracked on that this morning, of course, but I kind of believe it. Foles has got, I mean, once you've got Super Bowl MVP under your belt, you can get away with saying some stuff that maybe, Nick Foles 4 years ago couldn't. That does not surprise me. I actually liked hearing that. I actually liked hearing a veteran quarterback going, hey, look, he sends in a play, and I know right from the get-go that it's not going to work. I'm going to go ahead and make that change, and I don't have to, I kind of took it as I don't have to worry about that. Nagy knows that I'm good. If he sends in something and I don't think we can pull that off, then I'm going to switch out of that.
Yeah, I think the biggest red flag to me was that last week Matt Nagy kind of tentatively was trying to say we need to make this offense work. And he was even more vocal about it after the Monday night game. And that kind of concerns me because at this point, you kind of tried to push your chips in the week before. You said, we've got all these problems. We need to clean it up. We need to make this offense work. And then you come out, you have that Monday night blunder. And now you're saying even stronger, we need to clean these things up. We need to make the offense work. So what's going to change here? Other than your tone, what are you trying to convey at this point? We understand you're frustrated. Everybody's frustrated. And you lost two of your interior linemen that were very important to this team. But how are you going to fix any of this? I don't see that there's any magic bullet on this roster that's going to fix this thing. Maybe you try to go out and get a lineman, but I don't think that's a realistic possibility at this point. And there's nobody that's going to fix this offensive line or the play calling at this point.
Well, yeah, the play calling was what I was going to bring up because somebody asked him if he was willing to turn over play calling duties. And he said he was to the right person, but at this point he wasn't. And I'm like, if you don't trust your offensive coordinator to call plays, why did you hire him? That is literally his job. I mean, I get that some coaches don't do that. I know Andy Reid doesn't do that. There's some other guys who, they call the plays. I'm fine with that. But Andy Reid's got the ring. Andy Ring's also got a reed too. I'm sure maybe he played clarinet in high school. I don't know. But those guys have the proven background. And I'd say at this point, you don't have – it can't hurt. Try it for a week as an experiment. What's the worst that can happen? You only put up 3 points against this week anyway. Try it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that red zone scenario, or I guess it would have been, it wasn't quite goal line, but it was about goal line, where they ran 4 plays. All of them were immediately demolished. And that's where you kind of heard this broadcast that is unwilling to push in any of their chips really come out and say all of those plays were really predictable and they didn't have a plan there. And every plan that they were talking about was just focusing in on trying to throw a jump ball to Jimmy Graham and how the opponent took that away. Well, you have to be able to come up with one more plan than throw it to Jimmy Graham every time you get close to the red zone. And so it was very frustrating for me because what fixes those down and distances inside the 10 is a running game that can pick up more than 3 yards a carry. That would be fantastic. If you could just run the ball right up the middle, and get right into the end zone in those situations, you should be able to do that, especially as an NFL team. That's what you have those guys for. And Montgomery's supposed to be this guy who takes things to the next level, and he's this guy that runs through first contact. We'll have him run through first contact because right now he's juking before he even gets the ball, and he's trying to take out ghosts in the backfield, and there's no reason why he should be making these moves so early on other than the linemen are getting beat immediately. And you're seeing that in pass coverage too, because Foles is getting hit all the time.
Yeah, true. And the thing that I was going to bring up is, remember the first season, he did all the weird, wacky, exotic stuff. And I know people got onto him because he got into that too much. But when was the last time you saw Akeem Hicks in the backfield of a goal line situation? Like, if you're gonna be down there at 3rd and 2 from the 3-yard line, pull that back out of your bag of tricks. We haven't seen that in a couple of years. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's the worst that can happen at this point? That's basically my motto for week 8 is, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. Well, I think the reasoning behind that makes sense to me. It's one of those things that they're doing because it's fun, and it's one of those things you have to earn. And they haven't earned it because they don't score just on regular plays. If they were scoring 20, 30 points a game, they could be doing that kind of stuff. But they can't do that kind of stuff because they have to just focus in on trying to get those points, and they can't even do that at this point. In the Facebook chat, Chris Sinatra brings up maybe they should restart Trubisky again. Would that be a bad idea in your eyes?
I don't hate the idea, but I think you've got to give Foles a longer leash than 2.5 weeks. At least give him back till the bye week. I'm not quite sure when that is. Probably the week after Thanksgiving. I don't remember. But you've got to at least give him at least until then to see what you've got with this offense. Now, hopefully Robinson only misses a week with a concussion and then he's back. But if that turns into a longer-term thing, that becomes a problem too. Because outside of him, that wide receiver core is
Yeah, it's true. Mooney, I think, has shown the potential to be an elite wide receiver. At this point, he's not a fantasy rosterable guy, maybe in keeper leagues because you're thinking about long term. I think that he's shown a ton of potential, especially on these double moves. He made Jalen Ramsey, the best cornerback in the league, look silly out there on Monday night. Nick Foles just didn't have enough time to get the throw off or get the throw to where it needed to be. And so that's happened at least 2 or 3 times to Mooney this year. He's made the most of his targets. I think that that's somebody that could potentially break out in this kind of situation. But I would be okay with Mitch coming back at this point because it looks like with Foles, if you just change that number on his jersey and you put Mitch in these situations, we would be out for blood if Mitch was doing these kind of things where he's throwing into double coverage in the back of the end zone or off a turnover, throwing an interception immediately like he did 2 weeks ago. That's something where we would find that unforgivable if it was Mitch. And somebody else brought up the point that Mitch has guided this offense to 300-yard games so far this year more than Foles has because Foles hasn't done it yet. So it's something where his maneuverability, his escapability probably helps out that offensive line a little bit. That offensive line isn't nearly as good as it was at the start of the season because it's had so many injuries. Maybe you just need somebody out there who can move a little bit.
Could be. The thing that I was noticing, especially this Sunday, was when it got to be like 3rd down. Now, granted, they still weren't converting the 3rd downs, but Foles was making completions on 3rd down. It would go from like 3rd and 17 to 4th and 5. So they were making completions and picking up yards, even if they weren't converting them to 1st downs. Where with Mitch, those ended up a lot of times being overthrows or throws out of bounds or sacks. So I was like, well, at least we're completing passes and we're moving the ball forward, and now we're just kind of hoping that somebody breaks a tackle, misses a tackle, and then you get loose for the 1st down or a touchdown or whatever. But that was kind of my assessment. Was I'd much rather have a completion on third down and still be short of the sticks than it can be a complete misfire, and because that's still field
That's
position.
damning with faint praise there.
I know, but
you can complete
it
and be short, or you can not complete it and you don't get it anyway. So it's a hard one to come up with the right answer for, because while Nick Foles can keep you on schedule and does a better job of probably managing the offense, at the same time, I don't believe this offense can go 10 to 12 plays consistently and get to where they need to be on the field to score points. Even if you are getting in field goal range, then you're still running into the issue of can't punch the ball in the end zone. When have we seen them run a play that we were like, wow, that was really smart?
True. But I don't think
Especially
they have
around the red
anybody that's got the breakaway capability either. I don't think that they can. I don't think they have somebody who can take it 75 yards and just run away from a defense either.
Yeah.
With the exception of Mooney, which we haven't even seen him. I mean, I think he's got the speed to do it. We just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I think that's where those overthrows really hurt you from Foles, is the 2 or 3 times he has gotten wide open, the ball just misses, or it's off target, or he doesn't have enough time to step into the throw. And that's the problem with a lot of this offense, is that I think Nagy's like, oh, but we were so close. But if we just clean up a couple things, then we're going to be able to really get going. And it's going to look just like we want it to look. And it's going to look like Kansas City. And it's going to look like it doesn't Philadelphia, but it doesn't. None of this looks right. None of it works. They can't run a screen to save their lives, which is ridiculous, because this offense should be about like catching like the defense being overly aggressive and getting those big yardage gains off of little screens and smart stuff like that. Montgomery is only good as a third down back in my eyes at this point. He can't run up the middle and gain yards, so why not try more of that kind of stuff? But they do it so poorly that every time you think, why don't they do that? Then you get your answer when they do it, and it's awful.
Right. All right. So enough Bears for now. We've
vented. Yep.
We've gotten that out of our system. So a couple of things I started the show with. One, the ESPN had a discussion of whether they thought this week, and we're going to keep it to just this week, if Matt Ryan was a top 10 quarterback this week or not, playing Carolina tomorrow night. What's your call on that?
Fantasy-wise, I have no problem with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan always puts up decent numbers. He has the weapons around him to put up really good numbers every single week, too. So there's no reason to believe that he can't. They won last week. And as much as I love Todd Gurley helping out my fantasy team by scoring a touchdown instead of just falling down, that's not on Matt Ryan. I know a lot of people want to start pointing fingers, and you want to point fingers at the most important person on the team. And since Dan Quinn isn't there to show that he needs to be fired immediately because he's been fired immediately, you got to start pointing fingers at the next most important person, which has got to be Matt Ryan. I don't see any real problem with Matt Ryan. He's always been fine to me, especially fantasy-wise. He's solid. And I don't really know what you want Matt Ryan to do for this team other than play defense at this point.
Yeah, that's true. He's done it all, and he's done it for a long time. Yeah, I'm with you. I said for this week against that Carolina defense, I was cool with having him as a top 10 quarterback. Mm-hmm. The other guy that I wanted to ask you about was Baker, because he was so hot and cold Sunday. Started 0-5 with a pick. The pick cost them OBJ and OBJ's leg. And then he came back and was something like 22 of 23 the rest of the game. And it just was crazy on fire. Mm-hmm. What's your feelings on him? And obviously he's a rosterable guy, but every time you put him in, you don't feel good about it. What's kind of your opinion on Baker?
Yeah, I think you hit it really well there. I think that's well said, is you can put him in your lineup and then you don't feel good about it. I overdrafted him really high last year because I was like, okay, I liked what I saw. He's going to maybe take it to a different level. He's going to continue to improve. And extend what he built on in that first year, and then it was a regression. And you think, okay, maybe that's just Freddie Kitchens being an idiot, and you throw all that out. But the Baker being Baker stuff is still all there. Like the more swag than talent, I think, is a good label for Baker at this point, because while he is NFC offensive player or AFC offensive player of the week, it's one of those things where you're like, just can't trust it, can't do it, because you know that guy exists. He shows you every game that guy exists, and which one are you gonna get, Jekyll or Hyde? And so, which one do you want to bet on this week?
Yeah, I think it's actually funny that they make fun of that in those Heisman commercials, where he can't open a door or park a car to save his life unless Charles Woodson is screaming at him through a megaphone going, "I'm watching you."
You just need the more savvy player to be there to guide those young guys through those hard times, like parking cars. It's difficult.
It is. It's tough. My wife still can't park. Oh, DJ must be popping in because it says Bears talk snore. So this is where we go. Chiefs, 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 Chiefs.
That's too much Chiefs.
I know, but yeah. Well, they're going to win. They've got a blowout this week, so I don't know what he's talking about.
Is it just a Le'Veon Bell love fest again, or how's that going to work out?
It's the Lev Bell revenge game this week. So
gotcha.
So yeah. So I think. What did you think of the split between him and CEH? I thought that was about what I expected to see out of it.
Yeah, I would want to monitor how that changes. First weekend, you don't expect to see very much Bell. If they continue to kind of push him in even further, that's where you got to know you're in trouble by taking Edwards-Helaire. He's done everything to show that he's one of the best running backs in the league already. This move perplexes me. I don't understand it. I get that Le'Veon Bell wants to try and ring chase and be the guy who leaves every team in shambles and fire behind him. But at the same time, the Chiefs can handle him. It's not an issue for them. And it's just going to hinder a star player potentially in Edwards-Helaire that I think was really coming into his own and being a major part of that offense.
The only defense of it, I will say, and this just popped in my head right now, is you put in Lev Bell now at this point, basically the midpoint of the season, and you're saying, okay, rookie, I'm going to keep some tread on your tires for the playoffs because that's when I know that I need you. So we'll let Lev Bell run however he wants between weeks 9 and 17. And then once we get in the playoffs, kid, it's your show, and you're to come in with fresh legs. I would be all right with that scenario because if you just want Lev Bell to ring chase, sure, let him pile up his numbers now, and then let the kid do it, and then let Bell ride off into the sunset.
Pile up his numbers during the garbage time of the game, but at the same time, if you're Edwards-Helaire, you got to start to wonder if maybe it's going to be the inverse of that. You got to start to think, okay, maybe they're going to use my fresh legs here early, and then when it's winter and there's snow on the ground in KC, they're going to turn the ball over to Le'Veon Bell because he's supposedly the more patient back and the more powerful running back. And that's one of those things where it just remains to be seen. And I think that's the biggest question mark is how are they going to use these guys together? Because we haven't had something really like this in the past where an old veteran comes into a team where there's already an established rookie who is absolutely killing it.
Yes. DJ says that's toxic thinking. So I want you to keep thinking that way, Chris.
Yeah, we have every reason to believe Le'Veon Bell is a guy that we should definitely trust, DJ. You're 100% right.
Yeah, he hasn't been thrown off of two teams, busted for
everything.
Yeah, all that kind of fun stuff. Those old
good locker room guy, though.
Yeah, well, all those old Pittsburgh teams where you had a couple of druggies and a rapist and all those other folks.
Well, and they're the only team left undefeated at this point, which is kind of, do you believe in them? Do you think they're the best team in the league? I just don't.
I will know more after this week, after they play Baltimore. Though, if DJ is to be believed, which usually he's not, but he was saying that the AFC North is basically just beating up on each other or beating up on other teams, and they are not very good. But to this, I say Pittsburgh's 6-0, Baltimore's 5-1, Cleveland's 5-2, and then Cincy's dog crap. But at least look like they have a young quarterback heading into for now until he gets broken in half, because they don't have an offensive line either.
Myles Garrett was like terrorizing him and like bench pressing him on the field, and every time like afterwards they'd show like Joe Burrow's like parents in the stands, and I was just like, oh no, it's like Halloween came early, they're gonna close their eyes, this is awful.
Yes. Is Tennessee, is that all right, Deej? I thought you had to be nice with the wife tonight. Yes, Tennessee is that good. They went toe to toe with Pittsburgh. I
don't feel their defense as much as I used to. I think that the defense kind of got a little bit exposed over the last few weeks. That's the only real knock I have with them. I mean, I believe in Tannehill. I believe in Henry. It's that defense that I think you have a little more question marks about than you did at the start of the year, because you thought that was going to be one of their big bread and butter things, is they could rely on that defense and running game. And at this point, they're looking to get in trap meets with people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what they want to do. All righty. So what time is it? 9:20. That's pretty good. All right. So do you want to pick tomorrow night's game? Who's your
If I had to pick tomorrow night's game, I think you got to go with Carolina, just because the Falcons can't get out of their own way. And Todd Gurley, I love you, dude. I wrote him to a fantasy championship, and he's still showing up and giving me points when I don't deserve those points. So I am 100% behind whatever he wants to do. But Carolina is just a much better team. I don't think that Matt Rule is really that great of a coach from what I've seen, but they have way more talent than the Atlanta team does at this point. I like Atlanta's receivers, but that's about it.
Yeah, I say I want to take Atlanta in this one just because DJ says Carolina by 10. I want to take Atlanta in this one. I say they get off to a hot start. I'm going to go with I'm going to shoot my shot right here. So I'm going to say Atlanta comes out, takes the opening kickoff, scores on the first drive. Carolina turnover, short touchdown again for Atlanta, and before even halfway through the first quarter, they're already down 14-0. And Carolina is not built to run in a shootout the way that Atlanta is.
Yeah, I guess that's true. At the same time, you could have Atlanta be up by like 28-3, and then they still find a way. It just keeps coming back, just like every team against Atlanta.
Did you see the Spider-Man meme after the Braves blew their 3-1 lead?
Yeah, the 3-1 lead pointing at the 28-3. Yeah,
I saw it. That was harsh, but hilarious. All righty. So, anything else you want to talk about before we shut it down for tonight, sir?
Just a couple of pickup type situations. I think there's a couple good players on the waiver wire this week that you could potentially look at. I'm scrambling right now, Doug, so you can vamp for me for a second while I look to my producer or my phone to tell me a little more of what their names are, but I got to look that up real quick.
Sure. Alex Madison is not one of those dudes. We talked about him before, but I talked about earlier how Dalvin Cook looks like he's going to be back this week. Aaron Jones still looks like he's going to be out. So those are going to be a couple of guys. So maybe Jamal Williams isn't out there anymore. Neither is there.
I like the way that
Go ahead.
Williams looked, and I like the way that they used Dylan too in that first game. You worried that maybe Dylan was going to take the lion's share of the load there, and they were going to have Williams just fall back to his like third down back type of status. But Williams looked very good throughout that game. I was very impressed by him. The guy I was thinking of was Jermichael Hasty in San Francisco. With everybody being so beat up, I would look for him to be a good play this week. He's only owned in 36% of leagues, so that's a name that I would really be looking for because he really has good burst. I like what I've seen from him. Tevin Coleman is supposedly back this week, but it sounds like he's not going to be really game ready. So that could be one where he's back on the field, but not quite ready to be on the field kind of thing. So I would look for Hasty to be a guy who kind of falls in to that role that we saw last week where Jeff Wilson just went off. So that could be something that I think people can pick up like right off the wire now and potentially plug into their lineup.
Yeah, Cousin Bo actually asked about that earlier on tonight. I said I would be okay picking him up and putting him in my flex spot, but he's not somebody I'm probably going to ride long term or keep in a keeper league. But for a bye-week Band-Aid to get you through the bye-week gauntlet, I'm all right with that.
Who's the other one? Carlos Hyde is going to be in for Chris Carson's while he's dealing with his couple of week injury. Is that about right?
I thought I saw that Carson was back, but maybe I didn't. I don't remember.
From everything I saw over the weekend, it sounded like it was going to be a couple of weeks, but maybe he has gone from like doubtful to questionable.
Could be, yeah. But yeah, Hyde's the guy if Carson can't go. Oh, no, that was what it was. Carson was a game time decision.
So they've updated.
Yes. So Hyde is the guy if Carson can't go, but Hyde is a game time decision, and that game is a noon or is an afternoon game, I believe. Yes. So.
Yeah, they still have him questionable as I'm looking on ESPN. So that could mean anything at this point. But the likelihood, supposedly with questionable, is if they were to play today, 75% of the time he would start. So you got to like those odds, but I don't really like those odds. From seeing that terrible injury that he had earlier, leg, and then this additional injury, I think you just got to give him a week.
Yeah. Yeah, they've already had their bye week too, so it is what it is now. If he's going to miss time, he's going to miss time. There's no saving him for that, or hoping to catch an extra thing, unless they get like a Thursday night game, and then you get that 11 days rest or something like that.
Yeah.
Alrighty,
Doug. One good Bears note that we should comment on. What do you think of Cole Kmet? He had one big catch. He's finally getting targets out there. He's not just a ghost. What are your takeaways from the one shining thing we can kind of grab onto and sink our teeth into for Monday?
He looked good in like the first quarter. Forgot about him from that point on. So I say the talent's there. I don't know if they decided just to start double covering the tight end position and then Foles didn't have anywhere to go. I don't know. But I'd say the talent is there, clearly more talented than some of the other tight ends that Pace's picked. Say that 3 times fast. But yeah, what I've seen so far, he looks good. You know, he gets a year or two mentorship underneath Jimmy. Maybe he turns into something. Yeah, I've got no problem with what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I think this year you should definitely fade him and keeping him in the background. I think people kind of bought into him a little too much. They believe that he's instantly going to come onto the field and make a big impact because the Bears drafted him so high in the second round. But just his usage rate isn't high enough to demand the attention that I think he's got. I think he's being dropped in a lot of leagues. Just because you're seeing signs of life here, don't buy into that yet. He has to have at least one big game for me to think he's rosterable at this point. Long-term keeper league, I would just keep him bottom of the roster somewhere to stash him for a little while. But do you think Jimmy Graham has earned his pay in Chicago just from the numbers he's put up and how much he matters to this terrible, terrible offense?
Yeah, actually I do. I think he's if you project out what he's done so far and double it over the course of a season, barring his leg doesn't fall off Sunday, he's gonna. I'd say I'm totally cool with the signing. Chris Sinatra says Kmet needs to play more than Harris because he's awful, and I agree completely with that.
Harris is really good at almost catching the ball every time. He's always in the area where you think, oh, he's going to make a play, and then he doesn't. So, yeah, I'm 100% fine with that. I don't even know why they keep playing Harris, because coming into this year, I had no idea who he was. DJ filled us in and said he was on the Chiefs last year. And, of course, Pace can only get players who used to be on the Saints or on the Chiefs. So that's where we're at with things. But no, I think during the offseason, Jimmy Graham was a laughable signing. But seeing what he's managed to do, I think he's actually been worth the money this year, especially considering that this Bears offense can't find – they're the gang that can't shoot straight, and at least they have one guy they can rely on at this point.
Yes, he's the stormtrooper that can actually hit something. By luck, if nothing else. The guy on the defensive side who's that way, or actually the guy on the defensive side that I am surprised about how poorly he's playing is Danny Trevathan. He has not looked good this year. He gets run over a lot. He's been a liability in pass coverage. I'm really kind of the point where I'm like, you can go. We'll find somebody else. You can walk.
The real problem was that they had to decide between Trevathan and Kwiatkowski, and they chose wrong. That's the biggest problem. And they gave him like a 3-year deal. And I think that the defense looked better with Kwiatkowski at middle linebacker last year than it did with Trevathan. And the injury, I know. But the injury to Trevathan has made him look even worse. It looks like he knows where he needs to be. He just can't get there. And I think that's the biggest problem.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys in the league like that, but unfortunately he's now old and slow as opposed to.
They signed Manti Te'o to the practice team.
Any word on whether his invisible girlfriend is going to join the cheerleading squad?
They just can't have that roster spot go up like that, Doug. You know that they can't. In these times right now, you can't have one spot on your practice squad go to waste like that.
That's true. That is true. All righty, sir. Anything else you want to chat about before we call it an evening?
No, this was fun, Doug. I'm glad we got to do it without a DJ because, he just kind of takes up space.
He does, really. Yes. The ghost of DJ past was still here, but...
And it's almost Halloween, so it's spooky again.
Yes. I should be working on that. I need to work on that before. So
you're closer. You're getting closer.
I am. So drop off all your candy at our house. We bought Halloween candy. I've already eaten through the Reese's peanut butter cups, which I knew wouldn't last probably till Saturday anyway. But
never lasted our house. Yeah.
No, that I tore through. I tore through those in like 2 days.
I ate them all, and my wife bought a bunch of little toy things for kids at the store. So they're like terrible pencil sharpeners and little spiders and things. And it's like nobody's gonna like that. We're gonna get egged this year.
I was gonna say, do you want your house TP'd?
Apparently, we got a giant tree, so it's just aching for that to happen.
Yep. Yeah. Good luck with that, buddy. All righty. So that will do it for us for Short Yardage this week, presented by The Big Cheese. We want to thank them again for sponsoring our show. This is the end of food truck season, at least according to my Facebook posts. So if you do see them out and about, make sure that you grab lunch or dinner from them because it's probably your last shot until spring. So we do want to thank them. Otherwise than that, we will see y'all Sunday morning at 10 a.m. But with the daylight savings change, who knows when we'll actually show up. All righty. See y'all later.
Night.